Hello and welcome to Buildings of Tomorrow. My name is John Lester, and in today's conversation, we're continuing our discussion around the modernisation of fire safety systems. And I'm really happy and privileged again to be joined by Thomas Zermin. He is the Global Portfolio Manager for Fire Safety Services at Siemens Smart Infrastructure. Thomas, thanks for joining us again today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be a second time with you. Great.
It's a pleasure for us. And in the last discussion, we talked a lot about modernisation of fire safety systems. What do we mean by modernisation? What are some of the things that have remained consistent over the last decades in fire safety? But also importantly, what are some of the things that have changed, not just in the technology, but also in the expectations from a customer perspective? What are some of the new drivers in the market? What are the new trends in the market that are really also reflecting against the expectations from fire safety? And as we finished last week, we talked really quickly about, as a building owner, as a facility manager, as someone who is making this decision about modernisation, you highlighted for us two key topics: when and who. Give us a quick summary again of these two aspects of decision making, and then we can dive into the details and some guidance for those out there listening as to how they make the right decision around when and who.
Yeah, as I said last time, it's not a question of whether to modernize. It's about when and with whom, as you already stated. And for when, we do have two options. First of all, in a planned, stepwise manner, fulfilling also all interests which are on customer side to decide on a modernization project, or to stretch the life of an outdated end of life system, which would lead in the end, in my experience, to emergency modernization, and that it's forced really to rip and replace the old system in a really short period to a new system. And then with whom, of course, it could be a customer choice, either to go with an existing vendor, with his existing service provider, or second option could be going for a new vendor, new service provider.
I understand. So let's dive into those two different options when we talk about when, Thomas. So you mentioned you have that option to really have a planned approach, a stepwise approach that considers everyone's requirements, expectations, and then you have the alternative, which is a more last minute emergency. Give us a little insight about these two different options and some of the implications.
Yeah, thanks, John. I think here several aspects have to be considered. So for one, we have to face that older equipment does not have the capability to anticipate failures. And what does that mean for a safety team? They are always in a reactive mode. So they are expected to just jump in at any moment when the system is going slow or has failures. And looking at large facilities, I got feedback from, for example, a casino operator that his personnel has to spend up to 60% of their time validating failures and alarms. So fire safety solutions with no or even limited digital functionality requires always manual verification and validation of alarms. So that's one. Then, and that we also touched upon last time, that high rates of false alarms create really significant disruption to business operation. So during a conversation with an operator of a large hotel, he told me that he has to evacuate his hotel in the case of a false alarm. So, for example, his hosted conferences or the business meetings, and of course also the hotel guests have to be leaving the building, and that will result in a real case into costs of more than 100,000 euro a day. So that are really operational disadvantages with legacy systems. And then more talking about the technology, the next one is that spare parts for these older systems are becoming rare and more expensive because they are harder to source. And I think during the pandemic, all of us, for all of us, it came clear that we are dependent on supply chain and the availability of material. So also there, the technology provider developing new products are beginning to scale back the manufacturing of legacy solutions, legacy parts, legacy repair parts. And that leads to the effect that the service provider, which has to ensure for the customer that the system is operating also after a repair part, that he cannot ensure that. And of course, that's a technology part, but in the end, the service provider and then also the operator of the system are no longer being able to ensure a code compliant operation of the system, which is, of course, leading to maybe additional penalties for the customer, but also we are running into the risk that we cannot protect people and assets. And I think that's the key value and the key objective of a fire safety system. And to sum it up and also to touch upon then the stepwise modernization, I think waiting for replacing a legacy system can lead really to such kind of emergency and forced modernization, which in my point of view and my experience is more costly in the end, and of course also more time consuming, because you have to operate old and new system in parallel, which in the end leads to double effort also for the customer during that conversion phase. And there I see really the clear benefit of a phased stepwise modernization, because it's maybe slower, because it's running several years, but potential less expensive and offers also maybe more flexible options for the customer.
Understand, and knowing that that's the preference, not just for a vendor or a supplier, or service provider, but also for the operator of the building. How do we get started? How do you go about beginning the process of making this planned approach and then executing?
John, honestly, also here it's all starting with money. So the money is a key topic for the executors and the decision makers on customer side, because such kind of a modernization project has to fit within existing budgets. And there I see really also the benefit of a step-by-step approach, because they can now bundle it. They can define small pieces for that modernization project and stretch then the budget stepwise over years. So therefore, that is also contributing to the to the budgeting point of such kind of a modernization, because it all starts with in the first step with getting the money for that modernization. And as next, I really recommend that modernization experts are involved in modernization projects, because why I'm saying that, it's with the experts, they have not only the technical view, but also they know the customer's building and processes. They know how to enter separate rooms, locked rooms. They know the people. They have a human relationship. So therefore, that's also something which supports that stepwise and a partial replacement approach. And they can rely on proven plans, because they have a large expertise, like me, in the last decades. So therefore, they can maximize the customer budget while keeping the existing system running, and then step by step modernizing the whole fire safety system. And then, touching upon technology points, there are several smart devices available in the market, which the customer can go for, because you do not need to update the whole system. You can really have single parts in the technology of the fire safety which are needed to replace. And here we talk about, for example, multi-protocol devices. Multi-protocol devices is a very technology term, but it reflects that are devices which ensure backwards and forwards compatibility. So they can be installed on an existing system with new functionality, and then step by step, when the system is modernized, enable digital services, for example. So therefore, there are devices which, squeezes stepwise into into the fire safety system, and then enable new functionality with the final step of the modernization. So, in my point of view, for the customer, investing in a new system with planned modernization will, in the end, save money for the customer. And instead of focusing his resources on stretching the life of an old system.
Understand. Thanks for the explanation, because I think that's, this links back to your first comment of today's conversation, which is ultimately this has to happen at some point. This is not an option. It's essential that these fire safety systems are modernized, driven by compliance, expectation, driven by functionality, or just the availability and the reliability of these systems. It has to happen at some point. So there really is then that clear decision to be strategic about it, to think a little bit about that process versus putting all of your energy into maintaining something that one day is anyway going to have to come out and causing a challenge. Maybe you could give us, because you have a very clear statement there at the end, from your experience, that it works out better every time from a functionality perspective, a cost perspective, an effort perspective, etc., to take that planned stepwise approach. Maybe you could give us some examples, some feedbacks on exactly what that looks like from a customer perspective in the real world.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that, because that was also one of my key topics. We are always very technology driven, so that I wanted really to have some proof points, some testimonials of real customers which went for that system modernization. And several years ago, we conducted a survey supported by an external company, Verantix, and here really we achieved feedback of customer which had really operational benefit. And I would like to name the one or the other. So first of all, in a critical infrastructure, and you can imagine critical infrastructure is really business critical, that the fire safety system is running very good and very reliable. And this customer could radically reduce the number of false alarms. So his statement was, and I refer to that and repeat that, we have been able to reduce our false alarms by 70 to 80% with the new fire safety system. So I think that's really a proof point that he has no business disruption, and I think it's really critical in that kind of vertical market. Then, in conversation with another market, the hospitals, the fire safety operator stated that he could save between 20 and 30,000 euros per year by just improving the efficiency of his own personnel, own staff, and the related processes during evacuation procedures. So he stated, and I repeat it, with our new system, we have been able to improve our processes for incident management so that our 6-person team is able to do the work of 3 additional people. So the resource topic and looking at the resource point of view, not only quantity wise, but also know-how wise, could really be solved with that. And then the last testimonial, which I have here in my hands, is that most customers which we interviewed elected their existing provider. And why did they do that? Because they recognized it's a faster project implementation. So the museum facility manager told us that he could extend his existing solution with a new company. So if he would extend, sorry, I have to repeat it. If he would extend the existing solution with a new company, it would have required 50% more planning and implementation effort, because the new company, and that's what I also referred to, would need to understand his company, his processes, as well understand how to best integrate it in the existing equipment. So it's all about speaking the same language, which helps to make this process for a modernization easier. And let me allow to also have a personal proof point testimonial. I had the opportunity in May this year to visit a customer, a high-riser building in New York City. And the facility manager told us, hey, he reduced the number of events he has to investigate per week from 300 to 3 per week after the modernization. And that's really the operational benefits of that customer, because you can imagine a high-riser building in New York City has really a lot of effort to do with. So therefore, that was really helpful for us.
Thomas, thanks so much. I think those kinds of insights, those kind of proof points are really important. And what I liked through that conversation, you mentioned it as well, when you're making the second decision about with whom, whether it's an existing vendor or a new vendor, either way, it comes back to a fire safety system is not a copy and paste thing. The operation of the building, the goals and expectations of the customer and the users of the building, what's existing, that history formulates and brings with it so much knowledge and experience that can help through this process, especially a stepwise approach that makes this whole process more functional, more manageable, but also delivers that new functionality faster. And I think that's also something that I picked up through your conversation. You mentioned even though a stepwise approach might take a little bit longer on the calendar, it may also be the fastest way to really start to leverage these new functionalities, because you can get these forward and backward compatible devices that can start to add this digital functionality. They can be installed on day one in some areas and rolled out before the whole system is modernized. So it really highlights from your experience, but also the experiences that you detailed from those interviews that you did, that the benefits really do outweigh the potential capex savings of stretching something out and managing that cost and the process. So thanks so much for that. It was really insightful. And thanks for both conversations we've had, because I think something like, as you mentioned, fire safety systems are so reliable. They have this relatively long innovation cycle. So they're often not thought about, but there is a huge amount of benefit in thinking about it in a really structured and strategic manner, and having that conversation with those modernization experts to come up with a good plan for the future.
Yeah, thanks, John. You are perfectly summarizing what we just discussed about. And you are a good modernization expert already.
One more modernization expert is enough, Thomas, and I'm sure after these couple of conversations there'll be some more out there. And I think that's the part, because whenever we step back from the process, the technology, etc., it's about life safety, it's about asset and business continuity, and there really are no ways around this. It has to be done at some point. So really taking that structured approach can't be underestimated, can't be undervalued. Thomas, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate it and enjoyed the conversation. So thanks for spending your time with us over these last two conversations.
Yeah, same with me. Thank you for facilitating that conversation. Great to be with you.
It's a pleasure. And thanks to everyone out there who's listening. Please remember to like, share, comment on this episode, subscribe so you can keep your eyes out for new conversations around technology, around buildings, around infrastructure. And I'm sure you'll have the opportunity also, if you want to know more about modernization, to search out Thomas and continue that conversation, whether it's in LinkedIn or other social media platforms. So thanks so much for that, and we'll see you very soon.